Good afternoon, all. We will start our workshop very short. In 5 minutes. Good afternoon, all. इको हो रहा है पूरा. Is the sound clear now? Can somebody confirm from the participant side? अच्छा. आप सब कुछ अच्छे से होगा. पीपीटी शेयर कर दिया. ठीक है. होस्ट डिसेबल्ड. मुझे होस्ट बनाइए. मैम होस्ट डिसेबल्ड. होस्ट ये होस्ट डिसेबल्ड. Okay, so we are starting the proceedings of the third virtual workshop on tobacco use among tribal and indigenous communities of India. So this time, we are focusing on the challenges in implementation of the existing tobacco control policies among tribal communities in India. So I welcome a warm welcome from AIMS Devghar, the Union Tobacco Control Project. So I will now invite my head of the department, Professor Dr. G. Janvi Madam. She is currently head of the Department of Community and Family Medicine at AIMS Devghar. He will give the welcome address and introduce the workshop plan with you. Ma'am.
Thank you, Vijay. Good afternoon to one and all. And I welcome all the online participants. I'm very happy that all of you have joined for our third virtual workshop. So this is a project funded by the Union, strengthening commitment to tobacco control through stronger participation of medical institutions to counter tobacco industry interference. So our study objectives are sensitize and develop strong commitment from medical associations and including leading hospitals at national and subnational level to advance tobacco control, establish a center of excellence to advance tobacco control among tribal and indigenous communities of India, support the states of Jharkhand and Bihar with compliance surveys, example, all provisions of CODPA, vendor licensing, illicit tobacco sale, sale of electronic cigarettes, among others, and policy studies, and provide policy evidence to develop stronger implementation and enforcement. And the last and not the least objective is support Devghar Temple Town to achieve tobacco-free status by 2023 based on compliance studies and high-level declaration. So our project is headed by Professor Dr. Saurabh Ashne sir, our executive director and CEO. He is our team leader, and under his guidance, we are all the co-PIs. I am Dr. Janvi, and other co-PIs are Dr. Narsima, Dr. Shantanu from the Department of Psychiatry, Dr. Vinayagamurthy, Dr. Sudhir, Dr. Arshad, and Dr. Vijit from my department, CFM, and project staff, Dr. Benzer Alam, Dr. Ujjwal, and Ms. Nivedita Jha. So we are all doing so many activities under this project. A glimpse of it I'll be talking about. So just we all know that the burden of tobacco among Jharkhand is more than the other states of India. So the current tobacco users are around 38.9%, more than the all India average. And even the current smokeless tobacco users, it's 35.4% in Jharkhand, more than the all India average. So these are all the sensitization at medical conferences and associations. So all of us have attended conferences at many places like Rishikesh, Goa, Ramaiah Medical College, AIMS Devghar, and Mumbai. And the upcoming conference, Dr. Vijit and Dr. Narsima will be attending in Jaipur. So we had sensitized the faculty at the medical conferences. And there are many national consultations and workshops attended by our co-PIs. Dr. Shantanu, Dr. Narsimha, Dr. Vijay, Dr. Vinay Kumoti had attended workshops at various places. So this is a proud moment for us that AIMS Devgar has been declared as a Center of Excellence for Tribal Health. Honorable Minister Shri Arjun Mundaji had declared this as a Center of Excellence for Tribal Health in May 2020 to 23. In May 2023, he is the Minister of Tribal Affairs. We have a website now, so all of you can go to this website, and the website is uploaded with all the recent activities which we have been conducting for this tobacco control project. So the first regional virtual workshop we had in September, and many people have attended this workshop, and there was a panel discussion in this workshop where we had the key points evolved were tobacco use in tribal population is deeply rooted in their cultural practices, often guided by traditional leaders. In the northeastern regions, the prevalence of tobacco consumption is higher among women. Then we have to explore innovative strategies to engage youth. Overcome on-ground implementation obstacles is essential to activate district tobacco centers. Adoption of CODPA and TOFI guidelines in tribal areas is imperative. And given the remoteness of tribal settlements, necessary interventions have to be taken. We had a second regional virtual workshop in October where more than 100 participants were there all over India. Key points from this workshop that were evolved were there are myths and health benefits regarding tobacco use, such as offering nicotine water to guests and using tobacco for health benefits like alleviating tooth pain or menstrual discomfort. There is historical acculturation of foreign products like cannabis and opium were introduced by external influences. They became integrated into the tribal life through ritual ceremonies, and it became a part of their life now. And transmission of customs to younger generations, practices involving tobacco initially introduced by outsiders were passed down through generations and making it their own. Then addressing cultural influences and marketing, understanding all these roots, rituals, and historical marketing influences surrounding the substance is crucial for developing effective interventions. So we had a meeting, all of us had a meeting with the stakeholders where we had some takeaway messages like the administrative awareness. The administration itself is not aware of the CODPA Act and their provisions and their enforcement. And some other things which we had come out in that meeting was school awareness and monitoring is essential, and leveraging upcoming government programs, which is now going on from November 15 to December 21st, 2023, where we will be participating and to raise the awareness in the community. And complaint surveys also will be participating along with the NTCP nodal officer in public places to monitor purpose of complaints. Thank you so much. With this, my introduction comes to an end, and I would invite Dr. Arshad Ayub for his message.
Okay, so thank you, ma'am, for the introductory speech. So now I would like to invite Dr. Arshad Ayub. He is my senior colleague, as he is currently assistant professor and in the Department of Community and Family Medicine at AIMS Devgar. He have more than 48 publications to his credit, and he have extensively worked in tobacco-related issues. So with this, I would like to invite Dr. Arshad Ayub. He will speak on leveraging medical colleges for tobacco control among others. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vijit. Thanks for the invitation and thanks to all my colleagues, our respected head of the department, Professor Dr. G. Janvi ma'am, for providing me with this opportunity to speak about this topic, which is leveraging medical colleges for tobacco control among tribes. So the outline of the presentation, my presentation is, first I'll just give a brief light on the burden of tobacco use among tribals. Then I'll come to the cultural factors which are responsible and the impact of tobacco use among tribals. Then I'll talk about WHO FCTC 5.3 principles and recommendations. I'll also try to talk about a little bit about the provisions under the CODPA Act, and last, the role of medical colleges for tobacco control among tribals. So, as we know, the theme of this workshop is focused on the tribal usage and the justification of tobacco control and the challenges involved in the controlling the tobacco among the tribals. So what are the justifications? The first is demographic dividend, which is there. Higher prevalence of tobacco use is there in the tribals. Health disparities and vulnerabilities towards health is also different. The economic implications are also there, which are giving strains on their pockets, and the limited access to education and awareness. So we actually tried to explore this something with we tried to do one systematic review, and there were more than around 20 studies extracted, and a pooled prevalence of around 0.61, that is 61%, was found among the tribals. So this table shows the state-wise prevalence of these are the collected data from different studies. So state-wise prevalence of different forms of tobacco among tribes in India. It is actually quite high in Bihar. The smoking tobacco, the prevalence is 31%, more than 31%. The smokeless tobacco is 36%, and any tobacco, that is 59.3%. The situation in Jharkhand is also not much different. Just that smoking is little less in Jharkhand, but the smokeless tobacco is quite high, that is 44.82%, and the total tobacco, any tobacco, 46. This table, this is actually very interesting. This shows the types of smokeless tobacco used among the tribals. So if you see the canny, which is also known as canny, that's the local name, which is actually the tobacco and lime mixture, we all know it. So the prevalence was 16%, followed by this gutka, which is actually tobacco, lime, American nut mixture. It is around 7.29%. It is followed by the gul and guraku, which is 7.11%. And then pan masala, bitter liquid, nasal use of snuff, these are less. But this canny use is very prevalent. When combination of SLT products usage is seen, it is canny plus gutka, canny plus gul, canny plus bitter. These are seen in higher prevalence, like 5.5% and 3.79% respectively. The unique combination, not unique, actually the overall combination of canny, bitter, gutka, gul, pan, snuff, all is less, but yes, quite dangerous and is there in the tobacco, in the tribal population. Coming to the determinants of of tobacco use among tribals, first is the traditional practices. As ma'am told that what we got from our previous two workshops, we could say that tobacco plays a central role in numerous tribal cultures. It is featured in rituals, ceremonies, and traditional medicine. It's a part of traditional medicine also, as deeply woven into the customs. So that results in like social acceptance. Tobacco is socially embraced. So symbolizing the maturity and masculinity, they think that one who is something who is using these tobacco is actually some that person, that male is proper, like symbolizing the masculine maturity and the masculinity. And then peer pressure and community norms reinforce its usage. Then comes the economic factor. We talked about it. The tobacco cultivation is a vital income source of theirs. So fostering its use due to economic acceptance. And when the health consequences, we talk about the impact, the health consequences first, poses a significant public health risk in the tribal communities. Definitely, the higher rates of tobacco-related diseases like cancer, health issues, and respiratory ailments are there because of less diagnosis and the lesser awareness. Economic burden, we talked about the economic burden. The limited healthcare strains the limited healthcare resources in the tribal areas, which is already, the resources are already less. And if the people are using tobacco, they're presenting with the diseases and the symptoms and strains the already available limited resources of the health system. Then compounding the challenges of limited access to quality healthcare results from that. So if we talked about the cultural erosions, erodes the tribal cultures as health issues, despite it is the part of the, it is woven into their cultural practices, but also it erodes the culture as health issues, disrupt the traditional practices and community bonds, despite its historical roots. So what are the challenges in tobacco control policy implementation among tribals? First is the lack of customized intervention. So one size fits all approaches may not be effective. So we need to do some translational research and that what should be our strategy. The second is the cultural practices and beliefs. The tribals often have cultural practices, rituals involving tobacco, which makes it very challenging to shift their behaviors because they think that is something somehow related to their practices, their beliefs, their religious sentiments and sentiments. The language and communication barriers is also a major factor because the limited access to the information due to this, because there are several communities which are actually very they are using their primitive languages, that we have so many tribal communities even in and around this area of Ames. They use their primitive tribal language, even that is very difficult, different from Hindi and local language, whatever. So the understanding is difficult and it hampers the dissemination of the anti-tobacco messages among these communities. There are socioeconomic factors. So poverty and lack of alternative livelihood options in tribal areas can influence continued engagement to tobacco farming and consumption because they don't have much of the options. They are doing the farming, they're doing the education is very less, so they are not much into the jobs and the proper businesses. So access to affordable alternatives, lack of access to affordable and culturally acceptable alternatives to tobacco products may hinder the cessation efforts. The limited health infrastructure is also because inadequate healthcare facilities and outreach programs in tribal regions hinders the access to cessation services and awareness programs. So actually the focus needs to be changed. What we are doing the routine normal health camp and programs, and we are not focusing into the cessation services. So next is tobacco industry interference, TII. So we know tobacco is the only legally available consumable product which kills people when used entirely as intended. And the number is huge, 275 million tobacco users reside in India. The tobacco industry globally hampers the public health policies and tobacco control strategies. So these tobacco industries have their own tactics. What they do, they are portraying themselves as if they are doing something very good for the society. So they say that we support this sensible, the acts against tobacco, and we are here to help. Although they are the only people who are selling and making and selling the products. And the new lobby group out of the blue comes and starts doing the interference. This is actually the invisible editing hand, which is doing the wrong work, we can say, and portraying that they are doing the good things. They say that we strongly support the youth prevention programs. Actually, they are not. They are doing it, portraying that they're promoting other social activities, and on the behind, they're selling these things. The never-ending committee process. There are some the processes to implement these programs often result in some never-ending official files and committee processes and systems. And obviously, the last is money talks. They have the power, they have the money, and they have deep-rooted, we are very sorry to say, interference with the health system and the overall system. So the WHO FCTC Article 5.3 guidelines, what are the key principles? So principle one, there is a fundamental and irreconcilable conflict between the tobacco industry's interests and the public health policy interests. Principle two, the parties when dealing with the tobacco industry or those working to further its interests should be accountable and transparent. Principle three says that the parties should require the tobacco industry and those working to further its interests to operate and act in a manner that is accountable and transparent. And principle four is because their products are legal, the tobacco industry should not be granted incentives to establish or run their businesses. So understanding these FCTC guidelines or principles, we understand between what are the conflicts what the conflicts are actually happening because of this and their interference. The guideline says something else and the interference results in something else. So how to implement the FCTC Article 5.3? The first is, obviously these are our recommendations. So first, we have to raise the awareness of PII, which is tobacco industry interference. We have to limit the interaction with the tobacco industry, rejection of partnerships and agreements with the industry, avoidance of conflicts of interest, require disclosure of information by the tobacco industries to promote transparency, denormalize the corporate social responsibility activities, CSR, because these industries are doing so many things in the name of CSR. And actually, they are promoting the education services and they're making other products which are not related to tobacco, and they're into the hospitality industry. And as a part of CSR, they're doing actually the good work, but at the cost of the life of the tobacco users. So do not give any benefits or tax exemptions. These are the recommendations which can improve the FCTC Article 5.3 implementation. So conflict of interest declaration can be like this. And we actually declared, these are the list of 14 medical colleges and 4 dental colleges from the state who declared the conflict of interest statement on their websites. So that is very good to know that these colleges, and we have participation from these colleges. So we welcome your move, and this is thanks for doing this. Now, coming to CODPA, I'll briefly talk about CODPA. So CODPA has these sections. Section 4 deals with the prohibition of smoking in public places, and which should be smoke free. Section 5 is the prohibition on advertisements of tobacco products. Section 6A is prohibition of sale of tobacco products to and by minors. Section 6B is prohibition of sale of tobacco within radius of 100 yards of educational institutions. Section 7 deals with the specified health warning labels on all tobacco products. Section 12 is the power of entry and search, and Section 13 is the power to seize. Power to seize the objects, the tobacco-related objects, which are present where it should not be. The section of CODPA, there are penalties and violations. These violations and penalties have been mentioned. Like there are imprisonment for first offense 2 years, then 1,000 for prohibition of, if not, they're not complying with the prohibition of advertisement. The second offense is up to 5 years of imprisonment and 5,000 rupees. And prohibition of sale to minor is rupees 200. At least this rupees 200 is very effective. We discussed in, my colleagues will agree, we discussed last meeting with the stakeholders, with the administration. They were also happily agreed, and they were fine. They were actually not very much familiar with the CODPA Act. They knew it, but they were trying. They also agreed that they will definitely do this, and they will start collecting this fine, because that is also a major step which will improve the compliance. Now, Section 7, 8, 9 are labeling and packaging, which has like first 2 years rupees 5,000 and like that. So these are the IC material, and these horrible pictures actually should be there, and that should cover, as we all know, according to the code pack, should cover the 85% of the surface area of the tobacco products. And these are the imprisonment and in Hindi, written in Hindi. लाइक बिना विशिष्ट स्वास्थ्य चिकित्सा के सिगरेट और अन्य तंबाकू उत्पाद की बिक्री पर प्रतिबंध, 2 वर्ष तक कारावास, 5,000 रुपए तक जुर्माना। So these are the IC materials which should be mentioned. Now coming to the role of medical colleges, what is the role of medical colleges, medical institutes in this making this town and making these institutions tobacco free? So what can we do as a medical college? We can improve with the clinical services, the de-addiction services, and the symptomatic clinical treatment of the sufferers. Then we can do the education and training, which is the capacity building of the individuals. Then tobacco-free campuses, we can at least provide our campuses as an ideal tobacco-free campus. And we can develop the IC and IC materials and community participation. Then building partnerships, we can build partnerships with other institutions, other stakeholders, with administration, with other educational institutions and other departments. Then NTCP for monitoring and evaluation. To support research, we can do research as an institute, as a medical college. We can promote and start research. And this is also a very fertile area for research, the tobacco usage and tobacco industry interference advocacy. So these are the glimpses of World No Tobacco Day 2023 celebrations in 18 medical and dental institutions of Bihar and Jharkhand. We thank you all, and we have from these institutions also. Thank you all for participating and celebrating these No Tobacco Day celebration. We did one survey. I'll just try to share this findings from our survey, which was done involving the medical colleges, the students of medical colleges, and it has shown quite a few very interesting things. Like this first chart shows the prevalence of tobacco usage among healthcare professionals, students, faculties, and staff of Bihar and Jharkhand. So this yellow one is the tobacco usage ever, orange is tobacco usage current, and red is daily. Daily one is less, but ever usage is among staff, it is quite high, that is 40.3%. And among senior resident, it is followed by senior resident, 39.1%. It is less in nursing students because most of the, as we know, the usage among the females is less, and most of the nursing students are female. So, but still, yes, the overall is less, but ever usage is high, quite high. This chart shows the reportation of study participants with current knowledge related to tobacco-related laws or legislations. So the highest is smoking in the public places is banned. This most of the participants know this, that smoking in the public places is banned. But tobacco cannot be sold to minor. This is known by only 60.9% of the people. They don't know, like we can say that 40% of the people, they don't know that it cannot be sold to the minor. Similarly, OTT platforms are mandated to show tobacco warnings. 79.8% of the people know from medical college that the OTT platforms are mandated to show tobacco warnings during their programs and the shows. This next chart shows the proportion of study participants with correct knowledge related to tobacco-related laws or legislations. So the green is smoking not allowed, and this gray one is this orange one is the signage mandatory. So so smoking not allowed in healthcare facilities. 71.3% they show that they have the correct knowledge. Smoking is not allowed in these healthcare facilities. The signage is mandatory, and it is less among the accommodation and the eateries and restaurants. They didn't know about, much of the people didn't know about it is allowed if these signages are mandatory. So what is the perceived effective tobacco control measures as per the study participants? What they think what are the effective control measures? So the most of the participants, they think that the most effective thing is to do the penalties or fine on violation, and the least effective is the warning on the tobacco products and the designated smoking areas. These are the least effective measures. and the warnings are the least effective because people don't care. They see the messages, but they don't care. Most effective one is the penalties. If we are doing the penalties and collecting the fines, definitely the usage will decrease. So this figure shows the tobacco control should be given more emphasis in your curriculum as per healthcare students. So we asked the students that whether it should be included in the curriculum, this tobacco control. So 92.7% of the medical students said yes. It was highest among the dental students, and it was amongst quite well amongst nursing students also. So most of the students, they were in support of including these things, this curriculum under their education system. Tobacco control should be given more emphasis in healthcare curriculum as per the healthcare faculties. So medical faculties, both UG, PG, green is the undergraduate medical faculties, blue is the both UG and the PG medical faculties, and red is the PG medical faculties. So maximum if we combine the UG and PG medical faculties, they were also of the opinion that it should be included in the curriculum. So what are the take-home messages? We have to create the awareness among students, patients, and communities regarding ill effects of tobacco and related legislations. We must display the signages in our campuses. We should upload the conflict of interest statement on the website as I've shown, and as many of the institutions have done it in Bihar and Jharkhand. Elicit and document history of tobacco use among patients and linking of tobacco dependent patients to de-addiction facilities. There's the helpline, quit helpline number. Thanking you. I'd like to end with this Zindagi Chuno Tambaku Di. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asher, to making us go through the technical background and various activities what we are doing under this project. So with this, moving forward, so I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Upendra Bhojani sir. Sir is currently faculty of Institute of Public Health, Bengaluru, and he is also senior fellow of DBT, Wellcome Trust, Indian Alliance. Sir have extensive experience of public health. He is being engaged in research and knowledge translation in the area of tobacco control for over a decade and a half. So, sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I will stop sharing. Sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for giving me opportunity to share some things with you. Thank you, Dr. Saurabh, Dr. Janvi, and the entire team of co-PIs who are working on this important theme for already some time now. And for creating this wonderful webinar series or virtual workshop series. So I have been working in tobacco control for about 14, 15 years now. And within that, my main focus has been on political economy of tobacco and also understanding tobacco industry behavior and tobacco industry interference. I'm no expert on tribal health, though I have started taking deep interest in this area for last few years. I learned a lot from my colleagues at Institute of Public Health, Bengaluru, who have been working on Adivasi health issues for some time now. And I'm now a co-PI along with other colleagues at IPH as well as from other medical colleges for what we call Center for Training, Research and Innovations in Tribal Health that we have set up. It's a virtual research center that we have set up here in Southern India. So with that kind of a background, I have been asked to mainly talk about tobacco industry and tribal communities. The earlier speaker already covered what is tobacco industry interference and why it is problematic and how we deal with it. What I'll try to do is, and I don't have slides, I'll just talk to you about some of the themes. I actually found that topic very interesting because in fact, my earlier interest in this area started by recognizing that there is very high use of tobacco among many of our Adivasi communities. And then it is not easy to explain it from typically a commercial promotion or marketing of tobacco, because especially among, let's say, forest dwelling tribes, and I'll keep them as at the center of my talk. because you don't see so much visibly the tobacco industry and marketing happening inside the forested areas, but still, and so that made me interested in exploring these linkages. There is not much work that has been done or published in India about this. So I also found it stimulating to think further. So what I'll do is I'll rather talk about three thematics, which I feel links tobacco industry or tobacco business with tribal communities and especially forest dwelling tribes in India. And what do we know about these linkages already? And what are the areas we need to do further work in order to better understand? Because if we want to do effective tobacco control, we'll have to better understand how these two things are intertwined. So with that, let me start with the first thematic. I think to me, an important linkage between tobacco business and tribal communities is tendu or tendu pata, right? A leaf of a plant which is used in rolling BDs. And BD is a very prevalent form of smoking tobacco in India, and especially so among rural and tribal communities, but also women. Now, it's very interesting historical anecdote how tendu becomes a predominant leaf to be used in beedi making. And why I'm talking about tendu is that tendu is a known timber forest produce, and so it is typically found in central India jungles or forests. And many of the tribal communities are engaged in collecting tendu pata from the forest, right? So for them, it forms the part of their livelihood or earnings. And that's why I would like to speak a little bit more about tendu. I think if you want to understand better how come tendu becomes such a common thing, I think there is a very interesting piece on something called Short History of BD, written by Pranay Lal in a journal called Current Science many years ago. It's an open access article. It summarizes interesting, the history around BD. So BDs are supposed to have been invented in southern Gujarat, where actually the tobacco growing started first in our country, where laborers, used to roll tobacco, uncured tobacco, into some sort of broadleaf plant, and it was not necessarily tendu. You don't find tendu so much in Gujarat. So typically, later on, it became a small-scale industry, not a very big level, and typically, extra leaves were used to roll BDs. Sometimes mango leaves were used to roll BDs. And it's only in 1890s that because of the severe drought in Gujarat, that many of these small-scale entrepreneurs, they move out of Gujarat, go to surrounding states. And then there is this person called Mohanlal Patel. I think many often consider Mohanlal Patel as kind of a father of BD industry. He moves to Jabalpur. And he works in a railways, but he takes some contracts. But I think he realizes that there is opportunity for BD trade, because very few places sell BD, and typically imported from Mumbai at the time. And so he, along with his cousin, set up a factory in Jabalpur, and then they so to call discover how tendu leaf would be much more beneficial, because otherwise they had to bring the tobacco and extra leaves from Maharashtra or Gujarat. They realized that tendu leaf in many ways is much more amenable and suitable for BD rolling, and that's where I think tendu becomes and now more or less it's only the tendu which is used for BD rolling. And I think that's where there are a few issues. I think recently there was a study, I think again supported by the union, conducted by an agency called iForest. And they conducted this study in 3 states, 10 growing states, and they looked at 2 aspects of it. And I'll share those things because these are something that really connects with tribal communities. One aspect they do is to really understand the place of tendu in livelihoods of tendu collectors, most of whom are also members of the Adivasi communities. So clearly, it forms a part of their livelihood, but it is available only for, it's a seasonal thing. In a typically dry season, that the tendu leaves are to be collected. And the kind of remuneration they get is not commensurate to the kind of efforts and energy they put in collecting tendu. and often their livelihood, Tendu forms a very, very small part of their earning for their sustenance. And so typically they also collect many other NTFPs like mahua and many other things depending on which region we talk about of the India. And unfortunately, for over years, their socioeconomic condition hasn't really changed much. In fact, they disaggregate and show that those who are engaged in Tendu collection in particular, compared to those who are not collected in Tendu collection from the same community, typically a lot of impoverishment exists within those who collect Tendu. So Tendu doesn't seem to have contributed much in overall economic development of these communities. On the other hand, what they do is they show a very clear association based on data that there is very close link between prevalence of Tendu in this forest and the incidence of forest fires. Right. So Tendu seems to have a very close link with forest fires, which of course leads to deforestation, but also leads to a lot of CO2 emissions. And they actually collect and quantify these figures. I'll not go into detail now, but I can always share some of these key papers that I'm referring in my talk. So that you can...
ମାନେ ଆଗରୁ ଭଲ କରୁଥିଲା ଏବେ ଟିକେ ସବଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡ ଟିକେ ହେଇଗଲାଣି ମାନେ
I would request all the participants to mute their mic. You are disturbing the proceedings of the workshop. Kindly mute your mic. Let the speaker talk.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir.
So I think, and all of us know how crucial the forest and biodiversity is to the life of indigenous communities. So I think that's one significant way I felt that tobacco businesses and indigenous communities are linked. Let me go to the another thematic that I wanted to discuss, which is, of course, around the forest. Like I said, I'll rather focus on forest-dwelling tribes because otherwise, I think my earlier speaker already covered in general, and I think many of the non-forest-dwelling tribes are often part of those things, be it tobacco farming or various things. So the second part is, of course, the forest. Like I said, I mean, one thing that stands out in indigenous life is the connection with the forest, right? And it is vital to their well-being. And that's where it's important to note how tobacco has been a reason for a huge-scale deforestation in past, but also ongoing. And let me give you some picture of it. So, for example, tobacco growing when it started in India, and today we are the second largest grower of tobacco. By the way, tobacco was an alien plant, right? It comes to India only about 500 years ago. Portuguese traders bring that towards the turn of the 16th century. So but then it becomes a widespread commodity, and we are today India's second largest producer. Now, much of the land to produce tobacco, to grow tobacco, was acquired by clearing the forest. As per an estimate from a government report from India, it says that between 1960 and the year 2002, so nearly, let's say, in 40 years, about 68,000 hectares of forest was cleared, and which is linked to tobacco growing in India. It's a significant loss of forest cover. Now let's look in the current times. There has been a very interesting study recently by Dr. Nayantara Nayak, and again, I'll share the reference to you in the chat. This study looked at the fuel efficiency and tobacco curing. I think some of you know what is tobacco curing. So basically, curing is a process where we dry the tobacco leaf. If you don't dry the tobacco leaf, you cannot go towards manufacturing the finished tobacco products, right? So this curing typically happens by either fire curing or flue curing. Both of these methods, which are widely used in our country, requires a fuel wood. And much of it, what is used as a biomass is fuel wood. To very little extent, coal is used. I think in China, they have made, many farmers have made transition to the coal. But here, largely, we are dependent on the fuel wood. Now, from where this fuel wood comes, much of this fuel wood, unfortunately, comes from forest. So this study in Karnataka, which looked into the detail of fuel wood efficiency and tobacco curing, gives us some interesting insights. It says that on an average, about 8 kg of wood is needed to cure 1 kg of tobacco. So you can imagine the kind of scale of production we have around tobacco, what kind of wood quantity we need. And then they quantify this for Karnataka. And interestingly, they say that only a small portion of this fuel wood actually comes from a legitimate source, a legal source, which is from the forest depot, where the forest department sells the logged woods. Rest of the wood either comes from illegal logging from the forest, which means deforestation, or nowadays, what is happening is that the cigarette companies are promoting fuel wood plantations, right? And this is typically eucalyptus species. So ITC is promoting large-scale eucalyptus plantations in the country, which then can be used for the fuel wood. So, and there is problems with this because, as you know, eucalyptus is a very, is a species which draws a lot of water from the soil. So if you especially plant it in a dry area, it contributes to water scarcity in the region. And also there is biodiversity loss. What we are talking about is the wood plantation. We are not talking about the natural forest now. And the curing itself, the process itself leads to low CO2 emissions. So basically, my summary of this discussion is that there is a lot of deforestation that has happened in past, but also there is ongoing for deforestation because of the use of fuel wood in curing tobacco, and it is unlikely that this will change significantly in coming times. So I think that's another way in which tobacco industry directly impacts the life and well-being of tribal communities. And the third thing the last thematic area I would like to say a few words about is the actual tobacco products. And like I said, while in general, we know about various forms of tobacco, we have very myriad ways in which tobacco is used. But if you particularly focus on forest-dwelling tribal communities, and I have some experience of working with my colleagues in Karnataka with Solegas and other groups who stay inside the protected forest, what you typically observe is that many of the tobacco products which are consumed widely, they are not more standard and packaged tobacco products that we know them, right? Though some of these standardized products are also finding its way into tribal communities, especially BDs. But what we have found is that there are a variety of non-standardized, non-packaged indigenous products. For example, dry tobacco leaf, which is very commonly used, also part of the wedding rituals and things like that. Tobacco water is being used in many of the northeastern forest. I have only heard and read about this. I have not been able to observe many of these practices. Also, a lot of smokeless tobacco, which is basically sold in kind of small pouches. These are not standardized manufactured products. Now, the thing is, we really don't know about these products enough, right? When we started doing tobacco cessation, I think many realized that the kind of tobacco cessation manuals and protocols that we inherit are largely developed around cigarettes. So even for smokeless tobacco, we were struggling because many times the same thing was not as effective. I think we have now a global hub on smokeless tobacco by ICMR and ICPR, and they have now developed an online course especially for smokeless tobacco cessation. But when it comes to all of these products which are widely spread among forest-dwelling tribes, I think we need to invest much more in terms of understanding these products. What kind of nicotine, what kind of toxicity, what kind of addictiveness of these products, because without that, it won't be easy to just use the current cessation methods and find them as effective. This is beyond the other, of course, barriers in providing cessation services. So in our own context, we are trying to see whether we can profile some of these tobacco products and understand them better so that we can have a better and more tailored cessation services. So in summary, I think I have limited my talk mainly in drawing some of the linkages between tobacco business or tobacco industry and tribal communities, particularly forest-dwelling tribes. And I think these are lying especially around the Tendupata, around the kind of tobacco products which are being used, as well as the broader issues of deforestation and emissions, which are affecting the way and the environment in which our indigenous communities live. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments that might be there around this. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. So actually, there is a question answer session separate after the panel discussion. So we will take up the questions then. So I will request the participants, those who have any question, they can keep on posting in the chat box. we'll take in the question and answer session.
Sure, just one intervention before we move on. I think at 4 I have a management board meeting at my institute. So if I'm not able to stay beyond that, I'm happy to just type and
Okay,
answer.
okay,
in
sir.
chat.
I'm
We don't
asking-
have to do it now. I understand we are already running late, but what I'm saying is I'm happy to answer my things on the chat or listen to comments on the chat. So you please carry on with the proceedings.
So we are taking the question. So unless there is a question in the chat box, unless government takes a strong stand, nothing can happen. ITC products have gained lot of trust among consumers. Only few aware people will boycott their diverse products like biscuits, noodles, perfume, stationery, etc. So can you tell in this context something, sir?
I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a very obvious dichotomy, I think, that people very quickly realize governments needing to take a stand. I think the problem is that, both the way we look at government, government is not a monolith, right? So you have agencies of governments which are actually have a mandate to promote tobacco. Like, for example, if you look at Tobacco Board of India, which is Ministry of Commerce, their explicit mandate is to sort of promote tobacco industry, promote FCV tobacco growing, provide them with all the financial and technical support, etc. You have government companies like LIC and many other insurance companies, some of which are health insurance providers, who are the big investors in ITC. On the other hand, you have health ministry, you have the education ministry, you have women and child welfare, who are also doing a lot of work to reduce tobacco use. So I think that the thing is, this conception of government as a monolith is problematic. And so we are living in an era where there is this policy sort of lack of policy coherence, and there has been some progress in this direction. In fact, there was an interministerial committee on finding the alternative livelihoods for those who are dependent on tobacco, and there has been some progress. I think when it comes to cultivation, at least there has been a policy now at the tobacco board level that there will not be any further horizontal expansion of tobacco farming, meaning no new land. And there was also in between a scheme called barn buyout scheme, where we can typically reduce the infrastructure for curing tobacco. There have been some steps, but I agree that what we need is a whole of the government position and a vision, and not ministry specific things on tobacco.
Sir, we have another question from Dr. Jarina Begum, Professor Dr. Jarina Begum. Any strategies planned for standardizing the local tobacco products? Can you briefly answer, because we are running?
Yeah,
late.
sure. No, the brief answer is not that I'm aware of. I think commercial entities would rather not like these unstandardized products because they already have a standard products to market. So that's what I'm seeing, that more and more BD being percolated, and especially also cigarettes. Also, there is a lot of migration of indigenous communities for work, and that's where they are also exposed to newer forms of products, which then replaces the more traditional products. So yeah, the short answer is really I don't know about such strategies as of now.
Thank you, sir. So with this, we are ending this session. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your experience and your wisdom regarding this. Thank you very much, sir. So
Thank you.
with this, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So with this, we are moving forward to our next session, and the stage is correctly poised for the panel discussion. Slide second. So I would like to introduce the panelists. Slide share is equal to same position. So I will be myself, Dr. Vijit Biswas. I am assistant professor in the Department of Community and Pharmacy in IIMS Devkar. I will be the moderator for the session. So I would like to invite the panelists one by one. We are delighted to have with us Dr. Ranjan Sinha, sir. Sir is currently working as a general surgeon and have vast experience, public health experience of 35 years. Sir have been worked in various capacities like DLO, headed the NTCP program for almost 4 years. Sir created the national record by collecting ₹1 lakh fine for violation of Section 4 and Section 6 of Code 2003 Act during Savani Mela in 2019, and always being keen for proper implementation of the Code Pack. Welcome, sir. We welcome Dr. Ranjan Sinha, sir. We would also like to welcome Dr. Singh Alok Kumar, sir. Sir is currently the nodal officer for National Tobacco Control Program in the district Devkar. Sir has passed his community medicine from KEM Mumbai and has joined public health in 2011. Welcome, sir. We welcome you to the panel. Next, we have.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. Myself, Dr. Ranjan Sinha.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am introducing
very
all the
much-
panelists, then we'll start the talks. I am introducing the
Okay.
panelists, then we'll start the talks. Yes, sir. So next, we have I can say, giant in the tobacco control area, Mr. Deepak Mishra, sir, with us. We are enlightened to have Deepak Mishra, sir, with us. Sir is currently working as an executive director in Socioeconomic and Educational Development Society, SEEDS. Sir is also a member of state level tobacco
मैं तो
control
बोर्ड ऑफ खोल के बैठी हूँ वही नहीं हुआ
Jharkhand and Bihar. Sir is a member of task force constituted for Nasha Mukt Abhiyan. Sir has advocated and supported the government in passing various policy orders and notifications to ensure implementation of tobacco control laws. He is master trainer for mid-level tobacco control managers and government officials. Welcome, sir, to the panel. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Garima Bhatt, ma'am. She is currently working as a manager networking and partnerships in the union, International Union for Against Tuberculosis and other diseases. Ma'am have a vast experience of public health and have published various papers related to tobacco. And we would like to hear the NGO perspective from ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. Next, we are delighted to have with us Dr. Ishika Khare, ma'am. She is currently working as an assistant professor of law at National Law University, Odisha. She did her PhD in climate change and waste management. Currently, she is also exploring research interest in the area of public health and tobacco control policies. Welcome, ma'am, to the panel. Lastly, but not the least, I would like to welcome my senior colleague of my Department of Community and Family Medicine, Dr. Sudeep Bhattacharya, sir. He is assistant professor in the Department of Community and Family Medicine, AIIMS Devakar. He has more than 100 PubMed publications, including Lancet Regional Health, BMJ, and others. He is editorial board member of BMC Primary Care, Clinical Nutrition, ESPN. He has worked projects worth ₹6 crores, and he is fellow of Royal Society for Public Health, London. Welcome, sir. We are pinning the panelists in the single screen, then we'll start the panel discussion. So welcome to all the panelists. Welcome all the panelists, the respective panelists. So we are starting with our discussion. So first we will start the broad aspect of the issue, then we'll narrow down the aspect. So my first question, I will gradually come to one by one. The broad question we are trying to address here is the share insight the challenges faced in implementing tobacco control policies, interventions and laws within the tribal regions with the potential remedies. I will come one by one. First, I would like to request Dr. Deepak Mishra, sir, to kindly enlightening us regarding this.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. First of all, thank you, AIIMS Devgar, for giving us this opportunity to interact with all these enlightened participants. I was just listening to Dr. Bhojani, and Dr. Bhojani is a stalwart, and Dr. Bhojani has said whatever he has said about the indigenous community. We totally agree with it with him. As far as this from NGO perspective, I think we need to work in close collaboration with the government, with other stakeholders, and more for the community as a whole, but especially with this indigenous community, tribal community. And Jharkhand is a tribal state, we can say, and majority of the people are there. And we have got the opportunity to work in many of the district, which is district like Khunti, district like Simdega, district like West Singhbhum. The team which is working in that area or in the field, they should all collaborate with the local administration. And I'm happy to see here Dr. Ranjan Sinha sir, because we worked in Devghar for a shorter period, but Dr. Sinha has created the record for this during the Ravani Mela, and he is he has taken up this NTCP program as a DLO in other places also. So it is a good panel and good participants. And two things I just wanted to share with you. In terms of tobacco, it is used. It is more a cultural and behavioral issue. And for this tribal and indigenous community, more specifically, and we need to, and it takes both interpersonal and environmental intervention. So we need to work in close collaboration again, and the intervention should also be like through the institutionalization of the program in the area. सपोज आज हम कुछ काम कर रहे हैं और एक करके निकले तो आने वाला जो कल दूसरा है तो उनको मालूम नहीं पड़ता है कि क्या हुआ। तो एक जो स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए, बहुत क्लियर कट स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए, जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल स्ट्रक्चर है, चाहे वहाँ पे जैसे अभी हम लोग को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल रहा है, हमारी टीम काम कर रही है ब्लॉक लेवल पे, वो तो एक ब्लॉक में ब्लॉक लेवल कोऑर्डिनेशन कमेटी का कंस्टिट्यूट हुआ है बीडीओ साहब की अध्यक्षता में। तो उस तरह का एक और उसमें जो पीआरआई मेंबर्स भी हैं, लोकल कम्युनिटी के लोग हैं, कुछ ऑफिशियल्स भी हैं, कुछ सिविल सोसाइटी जो लोकल है वो लोग भी हैं। तो इस तरह का मिलके एक स्ट्रक्चर बना के उसका रेगुलर बेसिस पे उसकी मीटिंग्स हो, रिव्यू हो प्रोग्राम की, तो थोड़ा सस्टेनेबल हो सकता है।
Okay, thank you, sir. We would like to hear more from you, sir. Kindly stay back on the discussion. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Ranjan Sinha, sir. I will have a specific question for sir. Ranjan Sinha, sir. Share insights on the implementing tobacco cessation programs within the hospital settings catering to tribal communities. Sir.
Thank you. I am much delighted to join this meeting virtually. But this is a very effective and impressive meeting and knowledgeable for us. I am concerned with this tobacco cessation and tobacco control in public issues from 2018. In Ravani Mela, during 1 month, I have collected maximum amount by fining 200 rupees each on this public fine as a tobacco use on public places. So I would I was least interested in these affairs, but actually with all of this sudden I was made the nodal officer of this NTCP, and I was forced to do something about this control of the tobacco use. So during the month of Shravani, there is a pious month, and although we have a very limited resources, very limited assistance from the police and administration. I did my job very effectively. But one thing I would like to say, that the public participation in controlling the COTPA Act is very important. I went to public PRI member and collected them and hold a meeting to just convince the demerits of the tobacco use. And they are very much agreed. And one time I felt that awareness is lacking in rural areas, and we have to just make it more and more aware. The people should know what the dangerous effects or the side effects of this tobacco use in indigenous and tribal community. So PRI members are very much convincing, and they helped me a lot. So I was successful in implementing them in section 4, 5, 6, and 7. At the same time, we hold the quiz competition in public in institutions amongst students, and they are very much eager to know about the dangerous effect of the tobacco. And I think this should continue, and we are trying this year also, but not so effectively because of the lack of assistance. So as this indigenous and tribal communities are very much dependent on the economy of their local issues. So they are using this tobacco not only for their addiction, but for their economic purpose also, because kendu pattas are collected and they make their bidi and use them. So I would like to just convince a message to all of you that the administration is much more important in implementing the COTPA Act 2003, while awareness is very much important than these administrative efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We would like to hear more from you. So next, I would like to ask from Dr. Rishika Khare ma'am. I would request all the panelists, if possible, to switch on the cameras, because that way everyone can see each other and fruitful conversation may go on. So, Rishika Khare ma'am, welcome to the panel discussion. I would like to ask you, what legal gaps exist in addressing the tobacco use among tribal communities, and how can these gaps be bridged effectively, ma'am?
All right. So thank you for that question. See, at the outset, we have to say that if for protection of tribal communities in terms of law, at the core, we have constitutional rights that are available to tribal communities. Additionally, we have legislations protecting them in terms of their civil rights, in terms of their economic interests, in terms of their land. And then we have certain governmental schemes. Now, these are protections that are specific to their land or to their forest collection rights or to their civil rights, say, for example, in case of atrocities. They are not relating to tobacco control unless you are able to cover that under health legislation or economic interest. On the other hand, if you parallelly see the legislative regime on tobacco, that is also very general in nature. That also is not specific to tribal communities. So you have two regimes that are running parallel that can only interact with each other when there is a contextualized implementation. So now the responsibility rests with the implementers and the enforcers, how they're able to use the general regime of tobacco control or general regime relating to education, health, labor legislation, and then use it for the welfare of the tribal communities. Say, for example, studies have suggested that tribal communities have said that we are using tobacco, smokeless tobacco, etc., for better work, or it helps us work, right? It helps us get rid of different kind of tensions, etc. Also, simultaneously, you find studies that suggest that in, say, for example, states like Odisha, you have tribal communities migrating outside for work, and then they complain that the employer does not treat us in a fair manner. He's very abusive. So now you have to now use you if we are to relate that maybe there are difficult working conditions, and therefore to get out of that they have started using it. There you use labor legislations, that why is the employer being abusive. So we have to use human rights legislation, factories act, or multiple acts, minimum wages act, right? So why they are working, how the law can help them, right? Secondly, if I look at specific areas, the specific legislation for tribal communities is only with respect to their land or with respect to the forest dwellers' rights, right? So, where Bhujani sir talked about the trade in Tendu leaves, right? So, in terms of law here, Gram Sabhas in multiple states have been asking as a right more power decentralization in exchange or market of Tendu leaves, right? In the time when we are looking at public health and tobacco control, where we want stringent regulations, in opposition to that we are also seeing deregulation being demanded, so that there is ease of tendu leaf exchange and cultivation, and it's more localized, it's more economically benefit. But evidence has suggested that it's not, tendu leaf cultivation or sale or purchase has not been economically benefited, right? So coming back to the main question where you asked how these legal gaps can be addressed. One, the capacity building of the administration, where they use the general legislation like right to education, prohibition of child labor, because bead itself is also a hazardous industry, using these general legislation specifically for these communities for interpretation, because there is no specialized law. Instead of gap, there's a complete void of law, absolutely, right? The second is, for tribal communities there are designated scheduled areas. Scheduled areas have given more powers to the central government, have given more powers to the governors, where they can act in the interest, economic and cultural interests of the tribals, right? So this is the window of opportunity that the government can use for facilitating the interests of the communities by using more power. So even when the state governments have brought about, say for example, COTPA amendments, they need to give more power to the localized authorities to ensure better regulation at the ground level. So these are some ways in which we can do it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So we got to know that capacity building and decentralization of the power is required to effectively implement the various policies related to tobacco control legislation. So now I would like to bring in Dr. Alok Kumar Singh, sir, to say some priorities. What specific challenges do you face to effectively implement NTCP program, specifically in the areas where tribal population in abundance, specifically in Deoghar, Palajuri, and Karao is the tribal block. What specific challenges you face there?
Yes, sure, sir. Since I've been working in NTCP since last 1.5 or 2 years only, but as it was earlier also covered, and Dr. Deepak Mishra sir might be aware of it, I'm very much aware of it, that there was a period in COVID time when chewing tobacco or gutka was banned by Jharkhand government. So actually, during that period, it was very much effectively implemented in many areas, because see, when we are talking about tribal areas, our block Devghar as such does not have a too much of a population of tribal belt, because that is more concentrated in Devghar. Those blocks which have the tribal population, it's very much patchy distribution, and more concentrated tribal population is mostly seen in other areas like Dumka, because our region is known as Santhal Pargana. So Santhal belt is mostly concentrated in Dumka, while in Devghar, the little area where we have the population of tribal population, there mostly it is smoked tobacco, which is abused mostly, or even there is this thing. BD rolling work goes on in tribal population is very much it is very much there. People are using it for their livelihood, and the smoke the but in urban areas, while in our urban areas, when we are implementing this program, we face more of a chewing tobacco issue, more prominent and more prevalent than smoked tobacco. So there is a difference in type of the tobacco which is used by tribal population and the other urban population mostly. So we faced many problems like when while implementing these sections of Kodpa, because as Ranjan Sinha sir, our CS sir, has already discussed, that when we go to markets for like finding out those implications, like implementations of those Kodpa Act, whether they are properly implemented or not, and even if we find the violations, it was like very much difficult to like collect that fine, or even fine that person and take other legal aids to be implemented on those who are sellers or the shopkeepers, because there is a public notion around. We have faced these questions many times, both in the market while finding the violators of Codpa Act also, and also while conducting these awareness sessions in schools. There was this common question which was always raised, that if you want to you don't want the public to use tobacco, why the government is not banning it in the first place? The similar question which was asked in discussion also, why the government is not banning it in the first place? So there is a a movement, a thought, a belief in people, in public, that this implementing this Codpa Act, which makes it difficult to implement this Codpa Act, because on one side, our from health side, we are visiting every nook and corner, every schools, and we are trying to reach most as much young population as possible, and we are trying to convince them that tobacco is injurious to health, it shouldn't be used. We are teaching them the adverse effects of tobacco, and we are seizing, and we are taking action against the violation of Codpa Acts. On the other side, it is still legal to sell tobacco in any way, and that too, like mostly those there are many sections in Codpa Act which are there should not be sale of tobacco products in general stores, in provisional stores and all, which is thoroughly widely violated in general, daily, like day to day. We see it is getting violated every day, and there are very few, like the implementation of Codpa Act is very much difficult in field as compared to what we see or what we study in or discuss in such discussions, and we find on papers. So it is very much difficult. It was very much difficult. It is still challenging. And every time we face the same question whenever we go to school and all, that why government is not banning tobacco. If they don't want us to consume the tobacco, if it is so injurious to health, then why not, like other contraband drugs, tobacco is also banned.
I am
So
also
that was major issue.
peculiar regarding a question. You told that in the urban area, chewing tobacco is more prevalent, and
Yeah.
rural area, smoking is more prevalent. So is this because of the legislative measure what's in force that in public place you can't smoke? Is it because
आप
of?
थोड़ा डॉक्टर साहब माइक के सामने बोलिए, थोड़ा आवाज कम आ रहा है आपका.
Am I audible?
Yeah, better.
I was telling that in the urban areas, you were telling that chewing tobacco is more prevalent. In the rural areas, smoking is more prevalent, in Devghar at least. So is it because the legislative measures are enforced in the urban area and rural area there is not much?
No, it is more of a cultural thing, sir. The
Okay.
thing is that BD rolling and BD industry is much more common in tribal population. So they are early exposed to smoking tobacco. While in urban population, what we see in our district mostly, the people are very much it is urban population is very much a mixture of various places. It's not just the indigenous people who are like residing in urban areas, right? So in surrounding areas of mostly Bihar, in Bihar, we can see that it is this dry tobacco consumption, the tobacco and lime, which rural consumption, which we say kheni, जो लगा के घिस के खाते हैं लोग. So that is very much a part of their custom. Like when you go across through like Bihar's culture, It is very much a part of daily life and culture, similar to what we see in many states.
Okay, sir. I think there is some connectivity issues are there. So I would like to bring in Garima Bhatt ma'am in this gesture. So ma'am, we would like to know from you what innovative strategies have shown promise in engaging populations in tobacco control programs, specifically in tribal prospect.
Thank you, sir. I hope my voice is loud and clear.
Yes, ma'am, you are loud and clear, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and the opportunity to speak on this topic. Um, I would like to start with some background that we in India, we have around 8.6% of the national population, which is tribal population, and of these we have there are around 550 tribes in India, which also include particularly the vulnerable tribal groups. Now when we talk of the habitat of these tribes, the 90% is in the rural areas, while the remaining 10% resides in the urban areas. And but there's a gap that exists between these indigenous and non-tribal people because of their difference in the geographical habitats. And in addition to this, there is a cultural and traditional variation between these, which also disintegrates them from the mainstream socioeconomic activities. This further leads to disparities in accessing the public health services. Now, coming to tobacco use is something which is deeply rooted in their social beliefs and culture practices, and it's difficult to mold. It is difficult to change, as also highlighted by the previous speakers. When we talk of the behavioral aspect of tobacco use, so in some tribes, if you see, this has tobacco is considered for ceremonial purposes as well. Um, Now, when we talk of evidence on tobacco use among the indigenous communities, and therefore with respect to cessation, the evidence is scarce, and there is literature which is available either from a specific state or a region or a particular tribe. If time allows, I will be sharing few examples, such as there was a study from the nomadic group in Tamil Nadu, Narikuravars is which is the name of this group, and there was a study which was conducted among them, and it reported a tobacco use prevalence of around more than 60% among both males and females. Then, coming to the question, which is what are the proven strategies? So, as I mentioned, there is a paucity of literature, but we know that there is a National Tobacco Control Program run by the Government of India, and this National Tobacco Control Program, it calls for establishing tobacco cessation centers in the district hospitals and provision of free pharmacotherapy and counseling services in these clinics. In addition to this, we also have the national level and the regional quit lines which are available, and the M cessation program. There are counselors from the other health programs, such as AIDS control program, TB control, which are also providing cessation services at the primary level. Now, I'll talk a bit about the global literature, which reports some interventions, cessation interventions. So there was a meta-analysis, a systematic review and a meta-analysis, which talked about smoking cessation interventions in the indigenous North Americans. And this systematic review and meta-analysis reported that phone and web tools, culturally tailored cessation materials, and inclusion of indigenous people, it consistently influence cessation, smoking cessation. Besides that, the study also highlighted that the tribal or the community inputs is very crucial, and it's very helpful when we talk of the steps of intervention designing and implementation, and also when it comes to validating the tools or the materials that we develop for tobacco users. We also there is another resource which is Alaska Native Tobacco Prevention Community Toolkit, which is prepared by their state Alaska Tobacco Prevention and Control Program and the Native Tribal Health Consortium, which offers technical assistance. And what they have done is they have tailored their cessation materials to address the cultural considerations about the tobacco use in that community. Also, there are tobacco free policies in tribal communities which are seeking to implement a smoke free policy in these communities. Um, Now I'll share few examples from the national, sub-national level from India. So in Nagaland, the NTCP is working closely in collaboration with the church ministry, covering different groups of populations, uh, school going children's, youth and fathers campaign, which has shown results in spreading awareness and also motivating, mobilizing the community. Also in Nagaland, there is a strong body organization, student body organization, which is empowering and planning and also conducting activities for increasing the awareness and mobilizing people for accessing cessation services in Nagaland. One more example I'll share and then I'll stop. In Chhattisgarh, there is awareness through Mitanin, which is the term used for ASHA workers there, and there are cadres of NRLM, which is National Rural Livelihood Mission, which are very helpful in the state of Chhattisgarh for engaging the tribal population. Thank you, and back to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing. But what major point we got that most of the examples on tobacco control practical implementation research is from foreign countries. India, the literature is quite scarce, so it sets correctly for my next panelist, Dr. Sudeep Bhattacharya. Sir, I would like to know from you, sir, what gap exists in research regarding tobacco use in indigenous communities and how can these gaps be addressed? Hello, yes, sir, you're audible.
So, first of all, thank you very much to Lisa, especially Lisa, for the opportunity and OPI, my Solina, Janani, my Janani, for giving this opportunity, and my fellow teammates, all OPI and the total Indian team. So, there is a good question from Dr. Vijay. So, challenges come to overcome. So, I'm not expert of this topic. This is the first time I'm working with topic. So I went through literature review and system review and methodology exam, but I found that already 50% of my talk has been stolen by review. So cultural sensitivity and contextual understanding is the most important thing. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
So cultural sensitivity and contextual understanding is the most important thing for these things, and it is a generic term. So we need to know how they think, what they think of consumption and understand.
Your mic is mute, sir. Your mic is mute.
Hello, Brian, audible?
Sir, is Dr. Sudeep is audible, sir?
Yes, he's audible now. Okay, can you speak once? No, not audible.
Now I think I am audible. So this is an opportunity to share the podium with Dr. Vijay. So literature says something, and the background is something, or ground reality is something. But I feel because I brought up in a Santhal Pargana area, I'm from Santiniketan, so I have many Santhali friends. So, as per challenges, cultural sensitivity and contextual understanding is important, but how much, what, and who? We need to answer these questions. Next is research. I already mentioned regarding meta-analysis and systematic.
I would request other participants to kindly mute their mic.
So next is research. What I found regarding all research, mainly we are focused on data-oriented research. How many using tobacco, smokeless, this. But this is basic thing and it is required, I acknowledge. But the most important thing is tobacco is a cultural thing and it needs a behavior change. And we are not talking about the behavioral scientists, social scientists, and social research or qualitative research. So this area we need to focus on that in India as well as other countries. And as I trained from near Himachal Pradesh, so I can guarantee that Gujjar from Himachal Pradesh, they are also taking tobacco due to different reasons, due to extreme cold and this kind of thing. And now I'm working in Santhal Pargana, they are taking as their cultural lifestyle. So this is the important which kind of research we need, how research questions are framed. This need to be practicalized because as per I already mentioned, we are going like a DM curve theory. What is that? Just our demand or expectation is like going vertically, and ground reality it is just going like a parabolic structure. So we need to align our expectation and work. Third is challenges interdisciplinary approaches. I am actually sharing, it is though confidential, I am working with as ICMR senior scientist and NISFW senior personnel regarding framework, developing a framework regarding interdisciplinary approaches. Because aims are made in some tribal areas, just like Raipur and also in Deoghar. And we also mentioned nominated as a center of excellence. But the important thing is we need to develop Department of School of Public Health and importance of social scientists. So we need to include them, especially in tribal research. So are we doing that? So now we are 4 years old. So in future in our pipeline also we are thinking of that regarding inclusion of the social scientists, including tribal area people or tribal and giving priority to their jobs so that it will be more correlated with these things. And community involvement and partnership. This is also important challenges because they think we are alien. We are going once, doing a camp, collecting a data, giving talk, and we are just targeting our quota. So this is not done, I think. So these are the challenges, I think, and these are few questions in my mind. I just discussed with you, and what are the possible solutions? So culturally, in research, whatever I found that all the generic statements they are written. One is culturally tailored interventions. So another question comes to my mind because I know Santhal group of peoples. They don't take much of in West Bengal, Birbhum. They don't take much of biri or tobacco. They take much alcohol. But other than that, Orao, Bhil, Munda, they are also there. So their preference is also different. So now we have to pinpoint and specify this research because now we are doing all the same things and these jargons and generic things. We need to specify now. This is a high time for us. Second is tobacco education and prevention program. So are we doing in actual manner, proper manner? Because health communication is also important. So some people know only Alchiki. Some people know other languages. But we are giving messages in Hindi, either in Hindi or in the CME we are discussing English. So effective language communication or language barrier is the important thing. We need to overcome this. Next is some matter is there from law. So policy advocacy is important, enforcement is important. But my feeling and what I share my friends' experience, other experiences, they least bother about law. If you fine them, they will give fine. If they are poor, cannot pay fine. You can put them to the jail also. They don't have any problem. They will eat the food of the jail and then come back and again start taking tobacco. So how much fine you can impose is also important. And if you impose fine, another problem is that there will be black marketing. So this is now high time to do operational research on this also. Each point can be done in research article. What I am telling right now. Next is access of citizen program. In AIMS Devgar, we have dedicated de-addiction center. But in the tribal area, how it can be done? So we need to think. It is an important thing, especially for my friend Dr. Santanu and Dr. Narsima. They are experts. They can analyze and they can think about, come with a new idea, how in tribal area de-addiction centers can, how they can work. Because they will come, if we refer, some few problematic will come, all will not come. Next is, in tribal area, youth prevention programs are there, government initiatives. So how much we are doing actively, or how much youth are participating in that program. So we can do operation research on that area also. These are the all untouched area I am telling, because in systemic review, you meta-analysis, you do whatever numerical value, nothing will happen in the ground. In ground, who is working, he will know the better things, best things, I think, not better things, and he can give the solution for a specific area. There is no generic solution for this tribal health, because this is a very difficult thing to do this. Next is traditional healing approaches. So we always forget that traditional medicine was there before allopathy medicine 2000 or 3000 back. So they problem, they are addicted, some problem will be there for overdosing. So we need to find out the research findings from either from India or abroad, and most of the article I get from African research. African, Alaska, Native American, but Indian studies are not there. So another research paper can be done on traditional healing approach, what they do when someone is overdosing or having habit of these things, nicotine, tobacco, these kind of things. Next is economic alternatives. In some states, they have done economic alternative things, giving incentive, cropping areas. These are giving monetary benefits. But this is also important, determine the cost benefit ratio. So another study can be done. What are the cost benefit ratio giving to these two group of people? One is quitting from their BD rolling or tobacco rolling, and other than that. Next is mass media is also important, but again, the problem is language. In which language we put SMS, WhatsApp, whatever you do. The problem is again language. So I think the solution may lie in a symbolic messages, because symbol appeals to everyone. In WhatsApp also, we can blindly put, or we can in our mobile icons are there. We can blindly touch and then know that is a message, this is a Facebook, this is an Instagram. So this can be devised, and this is also research area. And I published 4 years back regarding this, how tribal messages can be effectively communicated to them. And data collection, obviously we don't have any data. So whatever quality is there, we should not go for quality right now. Local areas, small areas, we can take data regarding this. Later we can focus on quality. At first we can go for quantity research. And lastly, training and capacity building. How we can train them, how we can build their capacity. This is again generic word. Which kind of training we need to find? Because which kind of training they need, they require, and they are acceptable also. Which you cannot, if somebody from tribal Santhal youth is there, you cannot, if he is not liking to do any job, specific job or specific you cannot force them. So what kind of training he likes, it need to be specified. So most of the what I see regarding research, all are generic, all are vague. So now it's high time to specify and go to the micro level. And not bottom top down approach, it should be bottom up approach. From Jharkhand, interior of Jharkhand to Delhi, evidence should be created so that it could be implemented and it could be practical. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Biswas, I just would like to
of tobacco control policies in tribal areas. So we are running short of time. I think we can broadly answer the broad question which I have asked in first. What are the challenges, basically the theme of what are the challenges implementing tobacco control policies and intervention laws in tribal regions and potential remedies. In short, what we can feel the most important, we can answer in short way. So that we can finish in time. So I will first come to Rishika Khare, ma'am. Ma'am, can you give two, three concrete points, or in short, you can say what are the challenges? Yes,
Right. I think I listed the challenges earlier, that you don't have a specific law on the subject. You have to use the general laws. The second thing is implementation is the major problem. that does not happen. I think for the purpose of bridging the gap, we have to understand that the indigenous communities are very closed communities. So any form of role that has to be played has to be at the ground level from amongst the people who are within the community. So at the, let's say, at the district, autonomous district level, or at the panchayat level, if we are able to train somebody from the community for capacity building within the community, or if at the grassroots level somebody gets into the community, say for example through their cultural traditions, that may help. But I think law, in terms of law, we have to give more power to the district administration, which has special powers for tribals. That's yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So ma'am has talked about community participation and community engagement and capacity building among the tribal areas that might help us. I would now bring in Deepak Mishra sir to further enlighten us in this issue.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add from whatever has been discussed and being said. What is the tobacco? Why the tobacco control is needed? We all must know this, because 13.5 lakh people are dying because of tobacco-related disease every year in our country. Right. So 13.5 lakhs customers are reducing from the tobacco industry. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि टबैको इंडस्ट्री का तो मुनाफा घटना चाहिए, नुकसान होना चाहिए. बट आयरनी इज कि टबैको इंडस्ट्री दिन दूनी रात चौगुनी बढ़ती जा रही है, उनके जो मुनाफे हैं बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. वो आखिर टारगेट किसको करता है? वो टारगेट करता है हमारा यंग जनरेशन को. वो टारगेट करता है ऐसे पॉपुलेशन को जिसको इसके बारे में बहुत जानकारी नहीं है. और इंडिजीनियस कम्युनिटीज वन अमंग देम, ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज वन अमंग देम. तो सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत है लोगों को तंबाकू के दुष्परिणामों से वाकिफ करवाना, और इसके लिए सरकार काफी कुछ मशक्कत कर रही है. मैं झारखंड के कंटेक्स्ट में एक बात बताना चाह रहा हूं सभी लोगों को. झारखंड इज द काइंड ऑफ लीडर इन टोबैको कंट्रोल एज ऑन डेट इन द कंट्री, because the kind of policy decisions have been taken in Jharkhand by the state government, it is nowhere in the country. Jharkhand has already passed a Kotpa amendment law, very comprehensive law. As per Central Kotpa Act, you are not supposed to smoke at the public place, right? But as per Kotpa Amendment Act of Jharkhand, you are not supposed to take tobacco or use tobacco at the public place and spit. So this is a very big challenge, number one. Number two, as per Kotpa Act Section 6B, there won't be any sale of tobacco within the 100 yard of any educational institution. Government of Jharkhand has passed the law as per Section 6B. Nobody can sell tobacco within 100 meter of radius of any educational institution, any government offices, any court campuses, and one more thing was there. So there are four things. So you can imagine the kind of sensitivity the government has. Unfortunately, that law is, the state government is waiting for the consent of Honorable President of India. Then it will be notified. But the thing is, nobody knows about it. So my point is, we should work on the manner so that this tribal population or rural population as a whole could understand this, could know this, and could be aware of this. Number one. Since last 15 years, I have been working in tobacco control, and I have been roaming around in the country and in the various districts and the community, sub-district level. What I found till date, more than 60% officials are even not aware about all the provisions of Kotpa. Who are the law enforcers? And if there are two things need to be done. One is implementation of NTCP provisions, and enforcement of Kotpa sections. There are 4 sections. I was just listening, somebody was saying that uspe aisa photo वगैरह होना चाहिए. So it's already provision. 85% of any of the tobacco product packet हैज टू बी पिक्टोरियल वार्निंग, बट वो होता नहीं है, कानून का अनुपालन नहीं होता, और कानून के अनुपालन करवाने की जिम्मेवारी सरकार की होती है। और हम जैसे सिविल सोसाइटी के लोगों की जिम्मेदारी है सरकार के कंधे से कंधा मिला के जो भी तकनीकी सहयोग की जरूरत है, और एम्स देवघर जैसे इंस्टीट्यूशन की जरूरत है, जो भी टेक्निकल सपोर्ट है उसको देने का, प्लस पॉलिसी एडवोकेसी के लिए, और पॉलिसी को कैसे स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए। तो ये बात को दिमाग में रखना बहुत जरूरी है कि 13.5 लाख लोगों की जो मौत हो रही है हर साल तंबाकू जनित रोगों से, उनके बदले में जिस तरह का टबैको इंडस्ट्री अपने धंधे को चमकाने के लिए, बढ़ाने के लिए किस कम्युनिटी पे, किस तरह के एज ग्रुप पे फोकस करता है, वो एक समझना जरूरी है। और वो है हमारा यंग जनरेशन, स्कूल गोइंग चिल्ड्रन। उनकी पॉलिसी है कैच देम यंग की, टोबैको इंडस्ट्री की। तो हमारा भी पॉलिसी, सरकार की भी पॉलिसी है कैच देम यंग की, और इसीलिए टॉफी इंप्लीमेंटेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। समबडी हैज सेड कि टॉफी इंप्लीमेंटेशन इज वेरी मच रिक्वायर्ड। आई थिंक डॉक्टर रंजन और डॉक्टर आलोक समबडी हैड टच्ड ऑन दिस इशू। तो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे लिए, लोगों को जागरूक करें, लोगों को अवेयर करें। जो प्रोविजंस अभी फिलहाल है उस प्रोविजंस का प्रॉपर इन्फोर्समेंट हो। डॉक्टर खरे ने बहुत बढ़िया बताया, कानून का अनुपालन नहीं हो रहा है, इन्फोर्समेंट नहीं हो रहा है, और लोग अवेयरनेस की बात करते हैं। एक जो गैट्स का जो डेटा मैं कभी देख रहा था, या कहीं मैं किसी फोरम पे सुन रहा था, 93-94% पीपल आर अवेयर दैट टोबैको इज हार्मफुल फॉर द हेल्थ, लेकिन उस सिगरेट के डब्बे पे इतना गंदा सा फोटो लगा रहता है, फिर भी लोग उस फोटो को देखते हैं और सिगरेट सुलगा के पीते हैं। तो वो अवेयरनेस तो है उनको, लेकिन फिर भी वो अपनी आत्महत्या करते हैं, और आत्महत्या करके जो उसके छोड़े हुए धुएं से दूसरों की भी हत्या होती है। तो अवेयरनेस थ्रू इन्फोर्समेंट विल बी वेरी गुड स्ट्रैटेजी। अगर आप 200 रुपये तक का जुर्माना कोटपा में काटने का प्रावधान है, आप 2 रुपया काटो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। अभी डॉक्टर रंजन सिन्हा ने जो रिकॉर्ड कायम किया हुआ है, सर को सैल्यूट है कि वो श्रावणी मेला जैसे जगह, जो पूरा देवघर इज फेमस फॉर भोले शंकर जो के लिए, और बम बम वैद्यनाथ, बाबा वैद्यनाथ कहते हैं, तो वो जो आते हैं पिलग्रिमेज, उनके बीच में ये चालान काटना आप समझ सकते हो। तो ये चीजों को देखना है। तीसरा जो इम्पोर्टेंट है कि रेगुलर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग हो लोगों में। अभी तक जो भी काम हो रहा है पूरे देश में, वो इट इज मोर इन द अर्बन एरिया, रूरल एरिया अभी बहुत ज्यादा अनटच्ड है। और डॉक्टर राणा हमारे जो टोबैको कंट्रोल के हमारे विश्व पितामह हैं, डॉक्टर यूनियन के रीजनल डिप्टी डायरेक्टर, डॉक्टर राणा का एक कंसेप्ट है चलो गांव की ओर, उन्होंने एक लॉन्च कराया प्रोग्राम, तो उसको हमको टेकअप करना बहुत जरूरी है। और डॉक्टर गरिमा है, शायद कन्वे करेंगी यूनियन की टीम को भी, कि अब जो रूरल एरिया को अगर हम फोकस करते हैं, तो शायद ये जो गैट्स का जो डेटा अभी 28.6% है पूरे देश का, झारखंड का 38.9% है, कमी आई है, झारखंड में भी कमी आई है। 50.1% था जो घट के 38.9% आ गया है, इसमें और कमी आएगी अभी। तीसरा एक जो इम्पोर्टेंट जो रिसर्च की बात डॉक्टर मेरे ख्याल से भट्टाचार्य कर रहे थे, मेरा एक सबमिशन है कि अब तक जो गैट्स का जो सर्वे होता है, उसमें रूरल पॉपुलेशन में मेंस वुमेन्स होता है। एक अगर हम उसमें बाइफोकेट करके इंडिजिनियस पॉपुलेशन के लिए, ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन के लिए कॉलम अगर ऐड कर सकें, तो वो एक अच्छा डेटा आएगा, और उनके ऊपर पॉलिसी बना के काम करने के लिए भी अच्छा रहेगा। और रेगुलर मॉनिटरिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। जो कमिटियों की बात मैंने अपने पिछले वक्तव्य में बताया था, जो ब्लॉक लेवल पे, ग्राम पंचायत लेवल पे जो कोऑर्डिनेशन कमेटी बना के उसमें चर्चा हो, उसमें लोगों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को जोड़ा जाए। ग्राम सभा जो होता है हर गांव में, 2-3 दफे मैंडेटरी, जैसे 2 अक्टूबर को मैंडेटरी है, 15 अगस्त को मैंडेटरी है, पर 26 जनवरी को उसकी संख्या, नंबर ऑफ मीटिंग्स की ग्राम सभा की बढ़ाई जाए, और ग्राम सभा के मीटिंग में मैंडेटरी है कि एजेंडा हो टोबैको कंट्रोल। तो इनसे चीजों से लोगों में जागरूकता भी आएगी, अवेयरनेस भी आएगा, और लोगों को समझ आएगा क्यों जरूरी है। ये सब मेरे कुछ पॉइंट्स थे। जो कोटपा इन्फोर्समेंट और अवेयरनेस थ्रू इन्फोर्समेंट ध्यान रखना है हम लोगों को, और रूरल पॉपुलेशन के ऊपर ज्यादा फोकस करें। ऑटोमेटिक ये जो पॉलिसीज जो भी है उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन शुरू होगा तो चीजें दिखनी भी शुरू हो जाए। थैंक यू।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, आपने बहुत एक्सटेंसिवली और भी बताया कि एग्जैक्टली क्या कर सकते हैं टोबैको कंट्रोल के लिए। ये हमें डेफिनेटली गाइड करेगा फ्यूचर एस्पेक्ट में कि टोबैको कंट्रोल में कौन सा रिसर्च फ्यूचर में ये फॉर्मुलेट करे और कैसे गवर्नमेंट की सहायता करे टोबैको कंट्रोल के लिए। तो इसमें मैं अभी आलोक सिंह सर के पास आना चाहूंगा कि सर थोड़ा बताएं कि मतलब ग्रास रूट लेवल में आपको क्या लगता है कि क्या प्रैक्टिकल आपने कुछ कुछ बताया, मतलब what are the summary of the what are the challenges you practically face and what government should additionally do to tackle that?
हाँ सर, एक्चुअली वो कॉल आ गया था, आई गॉट डिस्कनेक्टेड इन बिटवीन। द थिंग इज, जैसा अभी हम सबने डिस्कस किया है, एक्चुअली हम लोग के पास एक तो सबसे पहले एक डेटा होना चाहिए, और इफ पॉसिबल थोड़ा क्वालिटेटिव डेटा हो तो इट विल बी मोर हेल्पफुल टू अप्रोच द प्रॉब्लम। और क्योंकि ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन में एज सच, जैसा अभी सर ने डिस्कस किया था कि ट्राइबल्स भी, देर आर डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ ट्राइब्स हु हैव डिफरेंट अप्रोच, डिफरेंट कल्चर। तो इसलिए अपने एरिया में जो पीवीटीजी और संथाल, दो जो मेजर ट्राइब्स हैं जो पॉपुलेशन मिलती है, उस पे हमें फोकस करते हुए कुछ रिसर्च प्लान करना चाहिए, ताकि हम लोग किस अप्रोच से उनपे, मतलब कि कैसे करके अप्रोच कर सके। अदर थिंग इज अवेयरनेस का, जहाँ तक बात है अवेयरनेस, हम लोग बहुत दिन से, मतलब मोस्ट ऑफ स्कूल्स में अर्बन एरियाज में तो कर ही रहे हैं, साथ में जो हम लोग का हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस सेंटर है, वहाँ के सीएचओज का भी हमने कई बार ट्रेनिंग लिया है, और ट्रेनिंग करके दो सीएचओज आर एक्चुअली डिसेंट्रलाइजिंग दैट अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम, and they also take up those awareness sessions in schools, whether primary, secondary, or whichever school is located in their panchayat. Alternatively, they are also trying to reach out the young people, because as we all know, and which is was one of the objective of NTCP के younger population में हमें कम से कम, मतलब ज्यादा से ज्यादा awareness करना है, so that anyway, because when a person gets addicted to this, especially chewing tobacco, तो उसके लिए कोई स्पेसिफिक हमारे पास अप्रोच भी नहीं है डी एडिक्शन का। एंड द अदर थिंग इज, जैसा डी एडिक्शन सेंटर के बारे में अभी कहा गया था सर, कि वी कैन like mobilize people to to the de-addiction center, but I think it would be more fruitful if we can, like, decentralize this de-addiction treatment to peripheral center. Like we can train the CHOs and all, so that it can reach directly to doorstep of those who need it. Otherwise they won't be, because especially in these tribal areas, they are very much not willing to leave their home. And for a thing, so like even for malnutrition, people are not willing to reach the malnutrition center. The adaptive rate are so less. And for something like tobacco addiction, which in our perspective, it is an addiction. Definitely, we know about it. We are trying to make people aware about it. But for the many people, for many tribes and most of the population, they don't even consider it as an addiction. Especially when chewing tobacco is considered, they don't even consider it as an addiction. So it would be, even if we have de-addiction centers, I don't think, like, it will be very difficult task to mobilize those people to avail those services. So it will be better if we have some data first, and then we have an approach, then we have a policy, how we can, like, force them for, like, motivate them for de-addiction and provide those services at their doorstep. That will be more helpful. And if we would be like, Devghar being a pioneer and partnering with AIMS, if we are able to develop such an algorithm or any system for that, Sheikh, it will be a great like opportunity for us. That's what I think.
Okay, thanks. Thank you sir, for the valid suggestions, sir, what we have received. So community participation is ultimately, that's repeatedly coming. Without community participation and demand generation, no intervention can be successful. We could engage in different ways to participate the community in the various policy changes. So now the concluding remark from Dr. Garima. Would you like to say something, ma'am?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think all the speakers have covered the major themes that have emerged out from this discussion. I would like to share a bit on building partnerships between each one of the representative here today at the forum is representing a different institution and organization. So I think when we talk of building partnerships, we need to look at the initiatives which are being run by the government of India for better health outcomes in for these tribal communities. For example, as Dr. Bhujani highlighted, the eradication of sickle cell disease in this community, then Mission Indradhanush for vaccination, Nikshay Mitra scheme for your tuberculosis. So I think this is an opportunity where we can integrate and have a collaboration with the already running schemes which are there for the holistic welfare of the tribal communities, where we can integrate tobacco control in whatever window of opportunity is available in each scheme. That is one. Second is taking further the a discussion from Dr. Sudeep Bhattacharya. I think support to the Tribal Research Institute scheme is something where we need to build a collaboration, and I'm sure there is collaboration, but maybe we need to strengthen it more. And there are multiple research questions and different themes and issues that have emerged out today, where we can build a collaboration with the Tribal Research Institute to take these questions forward and try to seek answers for them, and then translate the research into policy and practice. Taking cue from Deepak Mishra sir from Seeds, I think institutionalization of tobacco control through involvement in your state level coordination committee meeting, district level coordination committee, percolating down to block level and village level is something where we require an effective collaboration and a partnership, because such a partnership will help to build the community support and rapport, and also bring forth the issues that are being faced during implementation and enforcement. Then we have a national scheme of your Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan from the Social Welfare Department, and I'll quote an example here from Chhattisgarh, where the Bharat Mata Vahini cadre is being engaged to initiate and take forward the tobacco control focused initiatives. Besides that, lastly, I would like to cover that collaborative governance with the tribal groups and seeking their inputs to undertake any community assessment, followed by development of culture specific and their local specific interventions and implementation. I think it's going to be very helpful, and we can take forward the initiative of tobacco free village campaign, which is again a very crucial community based, community driven approach to combat tobacco use in tribal areas. That's all from my end, sir. Over to
Thank
you.
you, ma'am. So collaboration and integration is indeed important thing in this course. So lastly, but not the leastly, I would like to ask Dr. Sudeep sir to say his concluding remarks.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible? Okay, so actually I have already discussed, I have given actually not discussed, I have given.
We are not able to hear you, sir.
Unmute.
So now I am audible. Yeah. So to conclude that, I have already discussed 14 themes mainly. Whatever literature is available and what is not available, and what specifically, actually specificity, objectivity, these are the missing as a scientist, as a researcher. So I will be happy some of anyone from our junior, from colleague or any who are listening, I think now it is 75 participants, previously 90 participants were there. So these research questions need to be answered, need to be tailor-made, and youth is the most important thing, targeting youth, and always keeping, we have to keep in our mind that tobacco cessation for public or civil society is completely different ball game, and for tribal it is completely different ball game. So it is a much harder work, need to be decentralized, just like Dr. Garima is repeating the same thing. Decentralized system of screening, counseling, and also Dr. Alok I think said that they will not come to here as a de-addiction. We need to do some outreach services like for them in the Santhal district, because this is there in habits. So cultural aspects we need to focus much more before getting some data, first we get some data from these specific areas data, devise specific areas research questions for qualitative study, and devise for specific intervention for them. And just as Deepak Mishra sir told us that continuous monitoring and evaluation and taking feedback of these things, and yes, a PDCA cycle, plan, do, check and act. This is the ultimate thing to do for this tribal community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have made my job easy. You have very nicely summarized what the different speakers have said. So what key words we derive from this panel discussion is the community participation is of utmost importance. One size fit all. We have to contextualize the interventions and do capacity building at various levels to generate the community demand so that we can effectively enforce various tobacco control policies in the vulnerable population like tribal areas. So this collaboration and integration may be vital, and we can also do legislative measure by compulsory inclusion of tobacco control as important as a distinct topic in the Gram Sabhas. So with this, I would like to thank my panelists who have joined in this discussion. They have already overshooted the scheduled time. So I would now like to ask the audience if they have any questions, so we can take that. Otherwise, we can move to the next session. Is there any question? Okay, so if the audience have any question, we can give 2 minutes where you can type in quickly. So we have eminent panelists from different parts of country. If you have any query, you can post. We are happy to take the question. Which one? So whoever is there online, I would request you to kindly scan this QR code, fill the post-test form. Share. Achha. बीच में ले लेना था वो चलेगा मुझे लगा आप लोगों ने ले लिया होगा वहां से कर लेना था Okay, kindly scan the QR code to fill the post-test form to get your certificate, and we will request the participants to hold back for a group photo we would like to take. We are pausing for 2 minutes for just your post-test question filling. Okay, so I would now request the participants to share their switch on their video so that we can take a group photo. I would request all the participants to switch on their cameras so that we can take a group photo. Okay, thank you for sharing your screen. You can, those who have not scanned the post-test link, they can scan it. Or if you have any question, you can also put in the chat box. We are happy to take that. There's I am unable to scan the post-test. Ma'am, if you have any scanner, even some payment app scanner, you can use that for scanning the QR code, and you can just go to the link. That will the Google Form link will be open. Open link option is there. Once you scan, there will be open link option. Just click that, and it will be redirect you to the post-test link, Google Form link. I hope everybody is able to scan this post-test link. If you're not, kindly post in the chat box, or if you have any question, You can also put that. हाँ वो मैंने बोल दिया देख लिया ये हो जाए ना yes so I think everyone have scanned I think so you can complete the postage form so proceed with our presentations for the VC ma'am so
Thank you very much for this discussion. So we had come to some conclusions regarding this discussion. So I would just like to say that all the panelists and speakers will be getting this certificate and this memento. You will be receiving this certificate and memento, all the panelists and speakers, and all the participants will be receiving the certificate after you scan the QR code and after doing the post test.
So
I would take this opportunity to thank everybody. It was a wonderful panel discussion and it's a wonderful participation. I would like to thank Mr. Deepak Mishra, Executive Director, Seeds, New Delhi, for joining us in spite of his busy schedule, and Dr. Alok Kumar Singh, Nodal Officer, NTCP Devghar, Dr. Garima Dev, Manager Networking and Partnership, Union, New Delhi, Rishika Kare, Assistant Professor of Law, National Law University, Odisha, Dr. Ranjan Sinha Sir, Civil Surgeon cum Chief Medical Officer, Devghar, and my own AP, Sudeep Bhattacharya, Department of CFM, AIMS Devghar, as panelists. And I would like to thank all my co-PIs, Dr. Arshad, for giving the for speaking about leveraging medical colleges for tobacco control among tribes. I would like to thank KD sir for guiding us and supporting us and making all these DCs possible. I would like to thank all the participants from various parts of the country and especially from Andaman Nicobar Islands too for coming and joining us here. Thank you one and all. Thank you very much. And we would like you to participate in our next forthcoming conference too, which will be held in
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. Looking forward for working together again.
Okay, thank you, madam, for inviting us. So with this, we have come to the third virtual workshop on tobacco control among tribal and indigenous population. Hope to join you all in the January session, or January version 4th virtual workshop on tobacco control among tribals. So hope to join you then. Have a nice evening. Thank you.